Hello and welcome. Wherever you are in the world today, thank you for joining us for the Rise Traveler, unpacking conversations of sustainable travel. We are here to talk to eco-minded and socially conscious travelers, diversity and inclusion specialists, wildlife conservationists, environmental activists, and anyone using travel as a way to uplift and inspire. Together, we will go a step beyond the Instagram-ready world of travel and take a look at how travel can be a source of growth and development for all people and all communities. This podcast is an extension of the Rise Travel Institute, a 501c3 nonprofit committed to empowering young travelers through educational programs, research, study tours, and scholarships. Visit risetravelinstitute.org to learn more. And now, here's your host, Amy Hager.
Wherever you are in the world today, thank you for joining us on the Rise Traveler, unpacking conversations of sustainable travel. I'm excited to have back with me today Michael Luongo, who is a freelance writer focusing on tourism redevelopment after conflict, which we covered in a previous episode. And so we're not going to touch on that today. But instead, I'm going to have Michael dive into a more personal story about an article that he wrote for the New York Times. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Amy. It's great to be back as well to Rise. Thank you. And also thank you, Vinci. Thanks.
So when you really take another step back and to go into a different section of your story and your past and your background, you wrote this beautiful piece for My Modern Love in the New York Times, and it was about your roommate Harry. So will you share that audience a little bit? Because I think
Sure.
is definitely something that a lot of people are relating to right now.
So the story about Harry, or Wing Ho Chow, he was my roommate for many, many years. So I'm speaking to you from West Lafayette, Indiana, where Purdue is, but my normal home is New York, Manhattan, Washington Heights, top of Manhattan. And my roommate Harry, or Wing Ho Chow, was my roommate since 1999. He was undocumented. This is a big issue right now. I think it's been a big issue for decades. He was in the closet about being gay. He was in the closet about being undocumented. What did wind up happening, and it's partly because he was undocumented, he didn't really go to doctors often. And he wound up with stage 4 lung cancer, diagnosed very late with that. And that was all just before I came here for my PhD. And so I went back and forth. And we married for a variety of reasons. We talked about this before over many years to try to make him legal in some way and figure that out through marriage. But ultimately, at the end of his life, it became imperative because I would get paperwork that said that I was his caretaker, or that I can't remember now the exact word that the hospitals use, but sometimes they'd go to the hospital and they'd be like, Harry's Chinese and white, how do you, like, what are you doing here? And like, no, you can't make the decisions for him. We can't let you in the room. It's after hours. You have to come back tomorrow and you need special permit. They were ignoring the paperwork that we had. Medical. Yeah. And so we married because they couldn't tell his husband, if I'm his husband, they can't tell me no. It was also about, getting his body. It was also about, I wouldn't have legal problems related to the apartment that we lived in. So it was a variety of reasons, but at the end of the day, it also made it easier to take care of him as a human, to ensure that he got the best care possible while he was dying. And that story, so he died May 15th of 2022. And I'd wanted to write that story for a while, and mixed with it, my mother had died in September of 2020. My uncle had died January of 2021. So they're mentioned in this, sort of sorting things out, writing through it as somebody who teaches personal essay. We didn't add in my UCLA bio, but I also teach personal essay online for UCLA. Writing through and processing your emotions, your grief. And I wrote that, submitted it to Modern Love, didn't hear back, followed up with the editor, Dan Jones. When I followed up, it was on the anniversary of Harry's death this year, and he emailed back within an hour or two, said he'd overlooked it and accepted it. And that story was the June 8th, I think it was June 8th of this year, 2025, the New York Times style section, Modern Love. So essentially, their gay pride, modern love.
Mhm.
Um, and that's, it's a beautiful way to honor Harry, but it's also, as you point out, he's undocumented. This is in the news. He got emergency Medicaid because New York State covered the undocumented in particular situations. There were so many legal issues that I had to go
Yeah.
through, and I almost wanted to go to was going to go to the New York State Supreme Court about some issues. And then it was also this humiliation. I had to document that he was undocumented so that I couldn't claim. He paid taxes. He paid all of this stuff that the undocumented do, so that I could never, as his surviving spouse, claim anything from the
Mhm.
government. And when you think about that, I was able to help him. There
Right.
are so many people who are experiencing this, who die unnecessarily, who families that are broken up,
Right.
people who also maybe they hate the concept of the undocumented, but they're not really familiar with what that is. And
Exactly.
then they find out that their neighbor or their coworker, somebody they hung out with.
No.
So
Yeah.
there's this huge human cost. And I understand economically where, you know, the undocumented are exploited, and this drives down wages in many locations. I understand all of that, and we've got to solve that. I can't believe unions. I'm a liberal who believes in protecting workers' rights and all of that. But there's this huge human cost. And as somebody who's also been in former conflict zones, who's lived in Argentina, where people tell me the stories of people being taken off the street by masked men, um, this is what's happening in our country now to the undocumented, and not even in the undocumented. It's been made clear by the Supreme Court. Um, if you look, if you look Latino, you can be just taken off the street,
Yeah.
and this is horrific. So these issues are all what Harry went through. It's a story of one person, and I
Right.
wanted to humanize what millions of people are going through, and that's sort of the way that story ends. So, thank you for asking me about that. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, and it's hard to wonder. You had difficulties back when none of these immigration policies or none of these ICE raids, none of these things were happening. I
Yeah.
could not imagine what Harry would be feeling right now, what you two would be going through right now if you were going through that situation in today's world.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Really, I know he'd be terrified, and I talk with our neighbors in New York about this. And no matter what you say about New Yorkers, we all know our neighbors. We welcome new people into the building. I live in a great building in New York, where we all help each other out. And, I don't know what it would be like or how terrified to even just leave the apartment he would be,
Yeah.
and his world shrank more and more over time. Like, speaking of Trump and tourism, he has this huge collection of stuff from Trump casinos
Yeah.
that I have now, and he loved going to casinos in Atlantic City and Connecticut. But as the fear of crossing even a state border happened,
Right.
his world shrunk. So these are people who they're going to be hiding in their houses, in their apartments, in attics. I know that brings up images of, horrific things that happened in the 30s and 40s, but we are putting people through this.
Right.
Um, and that's really wrong, in my opinion. So,
Agreed. Even more recently with the COVID pandemic and us being
yeah,
isolated and having to isolate for the health of others, that
yeah,
is such a recent and still very raw moment for so many
mhm,
people. And so
yeah,
I definitely see how this pathway can be taking us down the wrong path and how it can be harmful for those who are absolutely scared to leave their homes, to leave their states.
Mhm.
Or on the flip side, I've seen many situations where people are leaving the country and they're no
Yeah.
longer able to be contributing citizens
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're scared of what could happen because they are transgender, because they're undocumented, or because they are Latino.
Mhm.
And it's a scary time to be living. And I think you sharing that story about you and Harry, and even though it happened years ago, still very, very relevant
Mhm.
for today's
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. Definitely. So thank you for asking about that. I appreciate, and that's one of the things when you write through your own pain and experiences, how will what you write about help others or help them think about something? Or how would, there's people I know who, friends, family, who hate the undocumented, and yet my story humanizes. Well, but I was married to, I lived with an undocumented. This is Harry's story. So these are not abstractions. And I think that that's one of the important things to think about through that. So, thank you.
Michael, thank you again for sharing that story and for being on a second episode with us. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's great to be back. And, thank you, Amy. Thank you, Vinci. Thank you, everyone at Rise, and for all the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. And that does bring us to the end of our journey today. So if you like what you've heard, please subscribe, like, and comment. We want to hear from you too. And just remember, here at the Rise Travel Institute, we believe conscious travel can help us create a more just and equitable world. And so if you would like to know more information about our educational programs, head on over to risetravelinstitute.org. We'll be back soon with another episode, but until then, keep roaming, keep learning, and continue to be a Rise Traveler. Bye bye.